Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. My name is Hassani, and I am live and direct from New Jersey. Every now and then, I will be at this location because I'm visiting the folks. And while up here, I cannot. I've been traveling yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to do the show, but I'm here with you today. I'm excited to dive into this conversation we're having about the number one reason your marriage isn't working. I think this is critically important to understand because oftentimes we're looking for help and assistance and we're looking for breakthrough, we're looking for transformation. And it reminds me of a quote that I once heard. And the quote says this: men are often anxious to change their circumstances, but they're unwilling to change themselves, therefore they remain bound. They want to change their finances, but are unwilling to change themselves. They want to change their marriage, but are unwilling to change themselves. They want to change their careers, but they're unwilling to change themselves. And so therefore they remain bound, they remain stuck, they remain in a place that they ultimately don't want to be. And in our best efforts to experience change and transformation in our marriage, we wonder why our marriage isn't working. Because your marriage will never work. And as we always say, counseling doesn't work. Doing an intensive doesn't work. Going to church and hearing a sermon work. Taking classes don't work. Seminars, workshops, those things don't work. The number one reason why your marriage isn't working is because you are not. The fact of the matter is, all of these things will work if you work it. And so the question is, what are you willing to do to get the things that you say that you want? Are you willing to wake up early in the morning and stay up late at night and work all hours in between? Are you willing to do the necessary sacrificial things that are required to get the results that you want in your life? If you're not willing to put forth effort, to put forth work, you will get nothing, and your marriage will remain in the same pit of pain that has been in for quite some time because you weren't willing to do whatever it took. And so the question then becomes, why do we not do what we know we're supposed to do? On this morning, doing some devotionals, which I do every single morning with God, I decided to, you know what, I'm back at home where I grew up. I'm going to go for a walk. And so just as Adam walked in the garden, in the cool of the garden, and began to have a conversation with God, I used this morning's workout routine to have a conversation with God. So I'm walking throughout the neighborhood, seeing homes that my friends used to live in when I was a teenager, and just seeing how the neighborhood has changed and how in some respects it's remained the same. And so as I'm beginning to communicate with God, anytime God speaks to me, I write down everything that he says. And so literally I have what I call my Rhema word, right? So when you think about God's written word, it is called the Logos word. God's spoken word is his Rhema word. So I have a Rhema Bible. And literally every time God speaks or communicates with me, I jot it down in my notes within my phone, and I can break down dates, and it's very organized. And this particular morning, as I'm praying, he says, listen, I want you to go back and read the things that I have told you to do. And boy, did I have pages and pages and pages over the years of things that he's told me to do. Matter of fact, these notes go back to 2016. And as I'm reading things, he asked me a question: how many of these things have you done? And as I'm scrolling through it, some of the things I've done, most of the things I have not done. And so immediately a scripture came to mind. Now I'm sharing something with you because I'm going somewhere. God has given me clear instructions that he wants me to be obedient to. And so it's not a matter of knowing what to do, because I know what to do. Why do we not do what we know we're supposed to do is the question. And he brought a scripture to my remembrance, and it is James 1:22-25. It says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he looks like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts will be blessed in his doing. Now, this jumped out at me because, in essence, it's saying the blessing that you're praying for and hoping for and waiting for and looking forward to happen into your life, the blessing happens when you do. The blessing is in doing. And so when we put that in the context of our marriage, we want a blessed marriage. We want things to turn around. We want restoration. We want to experience healing. We want our spouse to get over it. We want to have a fulfilling relationship. But we're waiting for God to do something for us that he has put within ourselves to do for ourselves. We're waiting for situations and circumstances to change in our environment so that we can experience a breakthrough. And as we're waiting, we're in a passive posture. We're in a position where we're not necessarily doing the things that he's told us to do to bring about the results that we ultimately want. So if you want transformation and if you want your marriage to soar, you have to begin to do the work, period, point blank, because the blessing is in the doing. So the doing doesn't lead to the blessing. The blessing is a result of what it is that you do. And so I asked myself the question, why do we not do what we know we need to do to have the marriage that we want? And so what I want to do is I want to talk about what I would call the barriers. Now, if you look at this, this is a gate. This is a barrier. It's blocking you. It's keeping you from going from one side to the next. What are the internal barriers that are taking place within our lives that keep us from doing what we know we should do to have the marriage that we ultimately want? Listen, on the other side of this break, stay tuned. We're going to go through these internal barriers, these struggles that we have within us, these internal breaks, and we're going to talk about what they are so that we can begin to remove them to have what it is that we want in our marriage. Stay tuned. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. We're talking about the number one reason your marriage isn't working, and the answer ultimately is you. You are the reason. But there are these barriers that get in the way, and that's what we're here this morning to do, is to talk about these barriers. Number one, fear. Fear is one of the barriers that is getting in the way of you becoming, of you doing, of you having what it is that you want. And as we know that there's all different types of fear, but fear, as we've heard before, is false evidence appearing real. And oftentimes it will stifle us, keep us stuck in do-nothingism, if you will, because we fear a few different things. Number one, we fear getting hurt again. Like, I want this marriage to work, but I fear that if I finally open up and if I finally show up, you're just going to do it again. You're going to betray me again. You're going to deceive me again. You're going to lie to me again. We're going to find ourselves back into this same situation. And so because of that fear, I do nothing. So even though I know what I know I need to do, I keep myself from doing it because of this fear. Maybe I have a fear of failure. That maybe in my mind, my self-esteem and my worth and my value is so low, I believe that nothing that I do will ever be good enough. I believe that every attempt that I make will fall short, that I won't be able to measure up. I won't be able to do what you're requesting in such a way that you receive it. I'm just going to fail again. Or my inherent belief is that this marriage is just going to fail. We've been vacillating back and forth whether we should stay or go. We've had makeup and breakup and makeup and breakups, even within the confines of our marriage. You've been living in a separate room for the last few months. We barely talk. We don't have sex. We don't communicate. This idea of divorce has been floating out there for so long. And so I believe that any attempt that we make will ultimately wind up in the ultimate failure of our relationship anyway. So why put forth the necessary effort to get what it is that I truly want? I don't believe it's possible because I fear that we're just going to fail. Maybe I have a fear of rejection because of the attempts that I've made in the past did not work out the way that I thought. When I approached you, you rejected me. When I offered you gifts and when I've offered you time and when I've offered to do things for you, you threw it back in my face. You told me you didn't want it. And so it taught me a lesson. Don't do that again. So I fear being rejected by you. Throughout the course of this relationship, I have faced abandonment and rejection from you, and I feel like it's going to be more of the same, and that is what keeps me or prevents me from showing up as my best self. Maybe there's a fear that my efforts just won't make a difference, that you've been asking me to do this for so long, and now when I begin to start doing what it is that you've asked me to do, you reject it. You say, oh, so now? You gonna do this after all this time? I've been complaining about this for years. I literally just had a couple come down and do a 3-day private marriage intensive with me. And as we're walking through what it takes to build a healthy foundation for a marriage, I mean, we were dealing with some phenomenal stuff. Immediately the spouse starts crying. She's wailing, she's tearing. And we're like, what's wrong? Because this would not be the portion of the weekend where anybody would be triggered, where anybody would feel low and dark. This is the place that they would be inspired and encouraged. But she starts bawling into tears. And we're like, what is wrong with you? And she says, I've been telling my husband this for the last 10 years. And I had to travel all this way and invest all this time to hear what I had already been saying. I get that. I certainly understand that. And so there's this idea that what difference will it make now? I've been talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and have had little results. And so trying to do something now will produce more of the same, no results. And so our own internal fear, okay, our fear is what keeps us from becoming who we ultimately need to become, and it keeps us from doing what we need to do. And if we're not willing to put in this necessary work, the marriage won't work. So the first barrier that has to be removed is the barrier of fear. Number 2, lack of confidence. Let me tell you something. When a betrayal has happened, it impacts the self-esteem of both parties. Now, of course, the betrayed spouse, low self-worth, low self-esteem, they begin to question who they are they good enough? All these things are real. It is a blow. You could take the person with the most confident disposition in the world. When this is done to them, they show up as a different person. They really do, at least for a period of time until they get back to their normal selves by going through a process. But not only does it impact the betrayed spouse, but it actually impacts the confidence of the former unfaithful spouse. Because as we talked about this time and time again, during this discovery phase, which is the most emotional phase, there's a lot of pain being tossed to and fro. And listen, the betrayed spouse has to understand that the unfaithful partner is going through a tremendous amount of pain because now they're dealing with shame. Now they're dealing with guilt in their efforts to try to make things right. They have the best of intentions, but they may be doing things that are counterproductive, and all their efforts are thrown back at them. And so they get to a place where they say, none of this is working. What am I doing it for? And so their confidence in their effort, their confidence in oneself is significantly diminished. So now you have two very non-confident people who are trying to embrace a process producing little results, and so they wind up throwing in the towel, calling it quits, and giving up because they're not seeing the results of their efforts. The reality is their efforts have been sabotaged and compromised because of these internal issues of fear and, as we see, lack of confidence. So the second barrier that has to be removed is lack of confidence. How about number three? Huge barrier, not having a clear vision. Think about this. If you are trapped in the pit of your pain, all you're thinking about is getting out of this pain. You can't see a day beyond your current situation. It's hard to even think about the future. In fact, we've heard this countless times when we're asking people, what do you really want? I don't know what I want. I'm not sure what I want. I thought I knew what I wanted before this happened, but now that this has happened, I don't know what direction I'm going in. I don't know what I want. I just know I don't want to be in this pain. And that becomes their number one objective, or should be for a period of time. But you've got to have a clear vision of where you want to be before you take the destination. I am here in New Jersey, okay? Just landed a day ago. Before I got to the airport, I knew where I was coming. Before I bought my ticket, I knew where I was coming. Before I packed my bag, I knew where I was coming. I knew the destination before I started the journey. And in your journey to become the best version of yourself, in your journey to restore the relationship that's broken, one of the things that will slow down your progress is when you don't have a clear vision and destination for where you ultimately want to be. And so that's what makes this journey more painful. That's what makes this journey a lot longer. Because if you have no destination, how will you know how close you are to getting there? You don't. You have no clue when you've gotten there. And most likely you'll never get there because you don't have a clear path that you're following. And so this is why it is so critically important to see beyond today. You know, we talk about the great ones, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, some of our great presidents who have helped advance the country, the leaders around the world who had insight into the future, right? They didn't believe in a future, but they believed the future into their present situation. They had clear focus. They had depth of vision. Think about looking through a camera and there's a lens on that camera. If what you see through that lens is blurry, you have to then begin to adjust the lens so that you have clarity. There should be a sharpness of the image, and the sharper and more clear it becomes, it's like somebody just put a battery in your back that allows you to just propel and move forward. But you got to have a plan and you got to have a vision. There's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel. You have to believe what's possible. And one of the ways to have a clear vision for the future is by connecting and aligning yourself with other couples who may be a few steps ahead of where you are. They've been in the same pit that you're in, but they're a few steps ahead of where you are. And you can see what's possible for you by looking at what has become possible for them. And this is why there's power in community. See, when you're in the right environment with the right people, and they're all striving for the same thing, it will boost your self-esteem, your level of confidence, and your stick-to-itivism. Did you hear that word? Stick-to-itivism. You begin to stick to a process because you're seeing people who are further ahead of you that made it. And if they can make it, I can make it. So you gotta have a clear vision. This is something that you have to talk about with your spouse. And both of you have to be bought into the possibility of your future. If you believe it's impossible, if you believe it can't happen for you, then guess what? Whatever you choose to believe, you are right. But if you believe that there is a possibility that you can be in a better place than whatever you choose to believe, guess what? You are absolutely right. We're going to go to one more before we take a break. The next one is you are trapped. Come on now. You are trapped in your comfort zone. This is a huge barrier that exists for both parties. Guess what? I've been in so much pain since this situation arose in our marriage. Listen, I just want some peace. I just want some comfort. I just want to avoid the landmines. I don't want to make matters worse. So I'm going to stay in my safety zone and I'm not coming out for fear that I may make something worse. And in our attempt to do that, we lose something. We lose our confidence, right? We lose our belief. We begin to operate in fear, worry, and doubt. And so we remain trapped and imprisoned in this very safe environment, but no one grows, no one changes, no one transforms. There's no healing, there's no restoration. We're committed to being married, right? But the relationship within our marriage still remains in a horrible, horrible, horrible place. You've got to be willing to take a calculated risk with no guarantee. Because no matter what decision you make, there are no guarantees to anything. And if you're waiting to dot every I and cross every T and know what the outcome is going to be before you take the first step, you will always be trapped in your pain because you're not willing to do the necessary things. And so sometimes when you talk about an explorer doesn't have a path already laid out. An explorer, think about a pathfinder, the vehicle. It's finding a path and getting on it versus an explorer. An explorer, there is no perceived path, but it will begin to explore, and there's danger in exploration. There's risk in exploration, but the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So you've got to be able to step outside of your comfort zone when it comes to your spouse. It means I'm willing to broach conversations that maybe I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I'm going to be willing to approach my spouse and support my spouse and serve my spouse and do the things I know my spouse desires, even though I know he or she may not be in a good place. But I'm willing to do it. And even if I fail, I'm going to fail forward. John Maxwell wrote the book, Failing Forward. I'd rather you fail forward than fail backwards because at least I'm moving in a positive direction to get where I ultimately want to be. And so sometimes really the comfort zone is right here in our minds. And so we have stinking thinking. We have this narrative and this story that we're telling ourselves about why we shouldn't do what we know we should do, why we shouldn't do what we know we should do to get what it is that we want. And it is a fear of pain, a fear of being hurt, a fear of making things worse. So all of these things combined, your fear, your lack of confidence, your no vision, you being trapped in your comfort zone creates a perfect cocktail for disaster, right? It keeps you in a stuck place of mediocrity and of average. And as I tell you, I hate mediocrity. I hate being average. To be average means to be the best of the worst and the worst of the best. You are stuck in the middle. And that is not where you want to be in your marriage. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to continue the other points and answer your questions right after this break. If you find yourself in a horrible situation, if you want to know why the number one thing or the number one reason why your marriage isn't working is because you are not working. So let me share with you what you need to do to experience the transformation. Stay right there. Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show, and we're talking about the number one reason your marriage isn't working. And guess what? The solution to that problem, the answer to the question, the what to do, the how to do, is to show up at a Last Chance weekend, because now you have a community of people and experts and a system and a process, and you've gotten away from your normal environment to do something that you've never done. In this 3-day experience, you're able to experience not only marital restoration, but your personal transformation. So people come from a place of hopelessness and leave with hope. They come from a place of desperation and leave with inspiration. They come from a place of ignorance and they leave with knowledge, tools, skills, and everything that is necessary to bring about ongoing change and transformation in your relationship. What are you waiting for? Why are you caught up in the next barrier? The next barrier that's keeping your marriage from working. And what is that? That is inaction. That is inertia. You know you need to do it, but for some reason you just don't do it. You are guilty of no action. And to know and to not do is to not know. You might as well not know, because even when you know, you don't do nothing with what you know, which is worse than not knowing. And so the reality is, you have a responsibility. You are held accountable to your level of knowledge. And so if it's not working, you have to look at the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror and realize that you played a major part in what didn't happen. So rather than pointing your finger at your partner, talking about what he or she's not doing, how they don't show up, what are you doing? Are you waiting for your spouse to do something before you respond and react? Are you tired of being the one? I hear you now. I'm the one who's always initiating. I'm always the one putting all the effort in. Yep. Keep telling yourself that while you sit in the sidelines as things get worse. Let me tell you something. There's something about seasons. There's something about times. There's something about systems of accountability. There's something about a process. And when you get in it, all of a sudden, what wasn't working before begins to now work, because you're doing, see, listen, you could be doing something, but you could be doing the wrong thing. And so doing more of the wrong thing doesn't produce anything but more hell and destruction. So what happens is, because what we're doing doesn't work, we stop and we engage in complete inaction. And now we're waiting for our situations and our circumstances to change. We're praying, asking God to do something. We're asking and relying on other people outside of ourselves. So we've given our power away because we're no longer acting. And I'm saying, you got to get in the water. You got to do the necessary work, because once you begin to do the right thing the right way, it produces a different result in your life. Okay. Then the other thing is, I just don't feel motivated. Think about, I know I got to lose 10 pounds, but I just don't feel like going to the gym. I know I should be eating this salad, but I'm just saying that burger and fries, it just looks and smells so good. I mean, I could do that later. Like, there's a lack of motivation that you have. So when it comes to doing the necessary work, you're looking at this huge mountain of problems, mountain of issues. We're so far from where we used to be. I just get so beat down in my mind, and I just don't feel motivated. Because if I don't get immediate results, then I'm convinced in my own mind, see, this is not going to work. I've lost my internal motivation. And people do what they're inspired to do. And so you have to tap into your inspiration and then attach your inspiration to a behavior that you can engage in that will produce the actions in your marriage that will create the results you're looking for. So lack of motivation. And then, to be honest, there's a lack of self-discipline, right? It's so funny. We put such demands and we're so uncompromising when it comes to the things that we demand in our partner, but we're not willing to do those same things. And so how you do anything is how you do everything. If you just struggle with motivation, if you struggle with drive, if you just struggle with discipline in one area, it bleeds and spills over into another area. These are the necessary things, folks, that we need to get rid of. These are the barriers that we were talking about. Now, if you remember, a barrier is something that blocks you. It keeps you trapped in a particular space and keeps you from getting to the other side. And so we have to learn how to bust up these barriers and begin to move forward in order to experience the things that we want in our marriage. Chef, come on, Chef. The last chance we can saved our marriage and changed it for the better, and we never been more happy. See, this is what I'm talking about, and I guarantee you, like many of you, they had struggles and fears and lack of belief, and maybe they didn't have all the resources, and maybe they came up with every single excuse in the book why they shouldn't do it, but they made the decision to do it anyway. And guess what? It was Joseph Campbell who said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And so you're looking for change and breakthrough and transformation, but you're scared to do the necessary work. You're scared to get into that cave because it looks scary and I'm not sure what's on the other side. You're right, you don't know. There are no guarantees to any of this, but one thing we can guarantee, if you do nothing, things won't even stay the same. If you do nothing, things will get worse, right? The law of vibration says that things are always moving. So either they're moving in a positive direction or they're moving in a negative direction. When you add your effort to a thing, it begins to move in a positive direction. But if you don't involve yourself in a thing, slowly but surely it begins to revert back and to go into a negative direction. And that's where you are headed if you don't do the necessary work. Beauty of Love T. Jones, I see you. A question off topic, but I'm going to address it. Can you please tell me why my husband lie about having sex with the woman he had the affair with just one time a week? He will not tell the truth for nothing. Well, I don't know all the details, but the reason why people oftentimes are very uncomfortable revealing truths, there's an incalculable number of reasons. We've talked about this at length, but number one, he may fear the consequences associated with telling you the truth. If I tell you the truth, if I tell you what really happened, my fear is that we won't be able to recover. So we may be married, but we'll be irreparably damaged, right? And there's no hope for healing within the relationship. So we will be trapped in misery forever. Or there's a fear that the marriage won't be able to sustain and it will come to an end if he shares his truth with you. Sometimes a person doesn't want to tell the truth because they don't want to cause more hurt and pain. They've already hurt you. You already found out about the affair and you're already in pain, but to know the details. If I'm committing to it was once a week, but it was several times a week, what damage will that do? So that's his justification, potentially, for not telling you the truth. He doesn't want to continue to hurt you. Number three, he may be trapped in between guilt and shame, which is a lesson within itself. So there are incalculable number of reasons why people do not tell the truth. Now, does that always have to remain? Absolutely not. It's interesting because people come here and do these intensives, and sometimes there's this fear that, well, my spouse is still lying, so I don't know what this is going to do. How am I going to get him to tell the truth? Well, whatever method or means you two have relied upon, whatever conversations you have that did not work, whatever lies and misdirection and omission of truth a couple engaged in prior to an intensive, their fear is that it's just going to be more of the same. But doing more of the same will get you more of the same. But when you do a private marriage intensive or a last chance weekend, you're doing something different. And you're learning new pathways and new techniques. And there's a different environment that is set up for the truth to come out. And so what I would encourage you to do, if you're not able to get the truth on your own, stop being committed to doing what doesn't work. Because doing what doesn't work and trying harder and being more committed to it will produce more of the same. You've got to be willing to do something completely different than what you've done to get a different result. So insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So if you want the opposite of what you've always got, you got to do something different than what you've always done to get the breakthrough. And so that may mean reaching out to Couples Academy. Listen, as we end this show, I hope that something that you heard here today will be encouraging and inspirational. I want you to replay this with your spouse and have some conversations about these barriers that have blocked and stopped you from having what you want. And then self-assess, because self-actualization is the result of self-awareness. You first have to acknowledge yourself, figure out where you've fallen short, and begin to do the necessary work. Question comes, what is your next last chance weekend? Great question. Great way to end this show. It's always the second weekend of every month. So if we look at the next one, we're looking at June 7th, 8th, and 9th. June 7th, the 8th, and the 9th is the next last chance weekend. You can register today. It's an amazing experience. As we close the show, we will end the show playing once again the commercial of the last chance weekend. Some of you have used every excuse in the book. Well, my kids are in school. Guess what? It's summertime. I was busy with work. Guess what? You go on vacations, right? Take 3 days off and invest in your marriage. Whatever your excuse in the past has been, I encourage you to throw it out, because an excuse is nothing more than a well-trained lie that you keep telling yourself. You need to do what is necessary to get what you want. If it weren't for me making the decision to truly invest in my marriage, I would not be here with you right here today. We wouldn't have thousands of couples whose lives have been transformed around the world if I had not taken the first step. What is waiting for you? What purpose has not been fulfilled in your life because you're still trapped in the pain of your relationship, which has taken up your time, energy, and effort and focus, and has been a distraction from your purpose? So if you want something more, you got to do something more. So we're going to end this show by watching The Last Chance Weekend. Love you guys. See you in the morning. Take care.